Hello, once again, everybody. It is time for Christie's Court on the field of 68 Network. And wow, we have the finest father-daughter coaching duo here to discuss their journey and how they are where they are right now, not just with basketball, but in life and the coaching dynamic that will be very interesting come Saturday when they tip off against each other in conference play. I would like to welcome Dave Magarity as well as his daughter, Maureen Magarity. And I'm so pleased to have you guys here today on Christie's Court.
Oh, thank you, Christy. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, this is special. It's been a long time coming since she was named the new head coach at Holy Cross, and I've sort of dreaded this day, and I've also been very excited about it. So it's going to be special.
Yes, no question about it. And I mean, Dave, your lineage in the game is definitely something to be proud of in terms of your personal journey. I mean, you're one of two coaches to take both a men's Division I program and a women's Division I program to the NCAA tournament. But let's flip the pages back some, shall we? Let's go back to when Maureen was just getting interested in playing basketball. What was that like? And you being a coach, what did you see in her at a young age?
Well, it's interesting. I've had this conversation with some other people about her start in the game, and back in those days, we tried to make it a little bit more diverse in terms of giving her opportunities to play other sports and not be just specialized. But it always came back to basketball, and I think part of it was she was always about 2 feet taller than everybody in her class. She was about 6'1" when she was in 7th or 8th grade. And she just was around the game so much growing up. And it just was something that I felt she just took a natural inclination to. She loved the game. She loved watching games. She loved being around the gym, and even at 4, 5, 6, 7 years old.
Oh, I love that. And Maureen, I mean, to have your dad be a coach, I'm a coach too, and I have 3 kids. So I had the blankets and the goldfish and the juice boxes in the gym when they were little bitty kitties and running around in the gym. So, I mean, yes, you probably did play other sports, but just being around it, doesn't that just kind of adapt your mindset to playing ball?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of my best childhood memories have to do with basketball, and not so much me playing, but in the gym, on road trips with the team, and it was just such a big part of our lives. I think, our dad being, I'm the oldest of 3, my sister Katie, my brother David. I mean, our dad was a basketball coach, but it wasn't his job. It was a lifestyle, and his players were our family, and they were at every, birthday party, every baptism, every big game, that I played. I remember looking up in the stands and seeing my parents and, whoever was on the team at that time. So, I feel really, really lucky. I had the best childhood and the best dad. So.
Oh, that's so special. And, when you first finished high school, you were a great scorer in high school and then went to Boston College, but your dad was coaching at Marist and ran some really great runs to the NCAA tournament during that time. But what made you transfer and go to Marist to play for your father after only 1 year at BC?
Yeah, at the time, my dad was actually the men's coach at Marist. And, so growing up, he was a men's coach for 30 plus years. And, when I went to BC, it was a goal of mine to play in the Big East, so Boston College was in the Big East at the time. And unfortunately had some injuries, but played on some great teams. We had some great runs. My freshman year, we were, I think, 14th in the country and made some deep runs in the tournament. But I always felt I'm going to come home, and at the time my dad was the men's coach and never put any pressure to come back and play. And funny story how it all kind of happened. When I transferred back, my high school coach, Brian Georges, who's currently the coach right now was still high school, ended up getting the head coaching job at Marist. And so then I ended up playing for Coach Georges, who has obviously had a great run at Marist, bringing some teams to the Sweet 16. And but it was special. I mean, my dad, my last year, he had been there for almost 20 years. And my brother David played for him. So when I was a fifth year, my brother David was a walk-on. He was a freshman, played for my dad. My sister was at Marist. So it was even back then, I kind of took that for granted, but just being able to know that my dad was down the hall, good or bad, he could also look out the window and watch practice and see me have a bad day. So there was always that side of it, but it was a pretty neat experience.
And how was that for your brother David to play for you and Dave? And how was that dynamic to have both of your kids playing in a Marist uniform, and you were right there in an eye shot of both of them, obviously?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, David, looking back on it, I only coached him 1 year, and actually I redshirted him that year. He needed, we joke about it now. I said, you really weren't a Division I player, but he would have probably been better off going to a lower level. But he had a great career there in terms of playing. He ended up playing with a young man who went on to play in the NBA. Jared Jordan got drafted, and they won a MAC championship. And he had a chance to play a little bit, but having Maureen and him together was special. The middle girl, Katie, was there too. She was went to Marist, and I didn't get much of a choice. I worked there, so they had to go there. So at least those two. Maureen, obviously, that was a decision she made, but
sure.
It was special, and having that whole family atmosphere. It's a nice campus. It was small, and then Maureen had a great run those 2 years with Brian Georges, who, as she mentioned, was her high school coach. Won state championships in high school, and then he turns that program around. I think he's been to about 12 NCAA tournaments.
Right. I know that's just an amazing story. I did not know that he was also your high school coach, Maureen. That's outstanding. That's awesome, because he probably knew all the inner workings mentally of how to tap in to bring out your best. And now as a coach, I mean, you sat on the bench with your dad as a coach, and what kind of qualities and philosophies in terms of that mental tap into your players have you learned from your high school coach and also your dad?
Yeah, for sure. So Coach Georges ended up giving me my first job. So when I graduated from Marist, I was in grad school, gave me my first opportunity as an assistant coach. And obviously I learned so much from Coach Georges, as you mentioned, a high school player, a college player, my first job, and just that winning mentality. I mean, anything that Coach Georges touches turns to gold, So I'm very, very lucky to learn a lot from him. And then for my dad, so growing up, obviously he was a men's coach for 30 years. And I never really thought that I would have the opportunity to ever really work for him, because he coached men. And,
right.
And then the awful circumstances happened when Maggie Dixon passed away, and my dad took over, and I was actually working at Fairfield University at the time. And when my dad took over, I ended up coming on his staff. And honestly, that first year I learned more about I always knew my dad, the main thing about my dad was always his relationship with his players. I mean, he's a great X's and O's coach, obviously, but just the relationships that he builds, and just coming out of that year, and, just how he dealt with that situation, just a horrible situation, and just how he, worked on the players every day and just was there for them. And on top of it, we ended up winning 24 games that year. So it was just an amazing year. But yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun too. I mean, I think, you look back, and my dad, I'm not the only head coach that's come from working for my dad at West Point. I mean, he's had a lot of coaches that have gone on to become head coaches, and he always gave us a lot of responsibility, and we also had a lot of fun. So it was a great experience.
Well, that's awesome, because you don't, understand what the sacrifice is until you actually coach in college, and you have to do the recruiting and everything like that, but you're also with your staff a lot. So that dynamic, Dave, had to have been something that was empowering to you, because you were leading the way for so many, like you said, Maureen, to learn what it took. And you have delineated all of the responsibilities out to them. So now they're in turn running their own programs and really planting those seeds for the student athletes and coaches on their staffs. But what was that dynamic like when you had Maureen on the bench there? You won a championship with her sitting right there on the bench in the Patriot League. What was that dynamic like as seeing her as a coach and someone who was also under your wing, not just as your daughter, but as a colleague and an employee?
Yeah, there's a lot of, you look at how everything went down, and I spent a year when I left coaching at Marist after 30 some years and went in administration, and then I was an assistant commissioner with 2 different conferences, and ironically they sent me here to cover a football game, and that was the weekend they had hired Maggie Dixon. She was hired late in September of 2005, and here I am covering a football game as an assistant commissioner for the Mid-American Conference. They introduced me to her, and she goes, "Hey, my brother's told me I should talk to you about being a coach, assistant." And I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Right.
I coach women, me, I don't know about that. And, my experience with Maureen, going through her development, her recruiting, and, I think with her going back even before when she was younger, the opportunity to play at a high level. She played with Sue Bird for 6 years, all the way through AAU. Had an opportunity to play with some outstanding players, and all that blended into her experiences and her development. But now here we go. I'm an assistant on the women's side. I'm asking her, "What do you think? Should I do this?" And it was a great experience because Maggie Dixon was an unbelievable young woman, and just that year we had. I only really had 5 months with her. She tragically passed away in April of 2006. And when all that happened, Christy, it was such a whirlwind time and so emotional. And Maureen alluded to it a little bit, but Maggie had already offered her a position on the staff because she had gotten to know her. I had taken a job in the NBA. One of my former assistants on the men's side had been named general manager of the New Orleans Hornets, and I was going to go work with him. But when all this happened, they approached me about staying, and my first thing was, "I'll stay if I can hire my daughter." So that became the big thing. So she really helped me out a lot because all of a sudden I'm not the nice assistant coach that I was for that period of time, and now I'm the I got to make the tough decisions. And she was really a huge advantage for me, having somebody I knew I could trust, and she had my back, obviously.
Yeah, no question. And with that being said, Maureen, you went on and really did a fantastic job of turning around the program at New Hampshire. You were there for 10 years, from 2010 to 2020. And during that time, what was that evolution like? And what kinds of things did you take from what you learned from all of your coaches, including your dad? What did you take from that to be able to turn the program around the way that you did and become National Coach of the Year, the KAL Coach of the Year in 2017?
Yeah, it was, I loved UNH, and I was so, lucky. Honestly, I got hired when I had just turned 29 and became a head coach, and the athletic director at UNH will forever be one of my mentors, Marty Scarano, and he gave me a chance at a very young age and saw something in me and believed in me, and that's all I needed. It was hard, and having somebody like my dad to be able, I worked for him for 4 years before I got the job. And I think his confidence in me to say, you're ready, you're going to make mistakes. And with a young team, we had to rebuild obviously for the first couple of years, and we had to recruit and obviously get lucky. But, the main thing I really took away from, especially my dad, was just, making sure that the players knew that you had their back, and, win or lose, that, they always knew that you had their best interest, that you cared about them as a person, and whether they played 40 minutes for you or were out that year with an injury, that they always felt that you had their back and love them. And no matter what, what happens, and kind of give them that tough love. And it was a great experience. experience at UNH. I mean, it was definitely a family atmosphere, family feel, everything that I felt that I was able to grow up in at Marist. Well, my dad was the men's coach, and really, grew a lot, I think, as a coach. Became a mom while I was there. I have 2 daughters, and I really, I felt like I could flourish. And obviously, when the Holy Cross job opened up, I felt it was the right time. And Holy Cross has always been a place that I've admired, and really lucky to be here now.
Yeah, you took over the Holy Cross program back in April of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic that we were all in. So I don't know how easy that was to do, because did you have a chance to go on campus? Did you have a chance to meet the players? I know they had graduated 5 players that were impactful kids from the previous season. And then, you're known for your magic and turning programs around. But that's a huge step, and not really having a lot of the foundational players remaining in the program. What was it that enticed you to go to Holy Cross when you did?
Right. Yeah. I get that question a lot. Like, not only, and especially, like you said, during a pandemic. I think like Holy Cross has just been a place, even when I was recruited by Holy Cross, working in the Patriot League, it's always been a place that I've always really admired, really just felt, I feel I could be a good fit there, always been a place that's been on my radar. And with our new athletic director, Marcus Blossom, I think with his leadership and his vision for both men's and women's basketball programs, it was just one of those things that popped up kind of out of the blue. I wasn't really looking to leave. Like I said, I loved UNH. I could have been there forever. Just felt like, it was meant to be, sort of thing. And even during a pandemic, but it was hard, to say the least. I mean, during the interview process, obviously couldn't interview on campus. Everything was over Zoom. Only met the team over Zoom for the first, 5 months on the job.
Wow.
I was still living in New Hampshire. I mean, I didn't even move yet. So, it's, hiring a staff over Zoom, all of that kind of stuff, recruiting. I mean, everybody has had to go through that a little bit, but it was interesting. But, I just go back to my parents too. I mean, I couldn't have done this without them and their push, because, I think as a mom too, you got to think about that. I mean, my kids are remote learning right now. I mean, there's a lot to it. And I think my parents definitely said, you got to do this. This is one of your dream jobs. You got to do it. And you know what, I feel so lucky, and it's been the best thing for us. And the future's bright. I mean, I'm in such an amazing institution with such great leadership, and I'm really excited about the future.
And I love that. I mean, you have to take the leap, and that's what a lot of successful people have said in terms of what it takes to have that courage to make that change, to feel it in your heart and soul, and to follow your heart. And Dave, both of you have said that, she had your back, and Maureen, you've also said that Dave, he's had your back. And Dave, as a mom, Maureen, she said, she has the 2 daughters, Charlotte and Caroline. And how have you seen not only how she has matured as a coach, but how has motherhood changed Maureen? Well,
Charlotte was our first grandchild. We have 7 now. So it's been, I look at her and what Maureen went through, at that point, right in the middle of the season. Charlotte was born in December, 22nd. Caroline was born in January, January 23rd. Her birthday's coming up 3 days before my birthday. And that's a great story if we have time to tell you.
Yeah, we have time. Tell it.
So we're playing Navy, which is the biggest game of the year, obviously, in Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
It's a big day. It's like the men and the women double header. Kelsey Minato is all over the billboards in front of the Garden. It is, unbelievable. And my wife had been with her for a week or 2, and she said, I'm going to take a break and come home and go to this game. Well, of course, she goes into labor. How many weeks early?
4.
Yeah. Oh boy.
She should have known, because she did the same with the first. But there's a biggest snowstorm in the history of New York City that day. Our game gets off. We play the game. as the game ends, the men's team's ready to take the floor. They cancel the game. They shut the Garden down.
Oh,
They
man.
shut New York City down. And she goes into labor. Her water breaks.
And halftime of watching his game on CBS.
My
Oh my gosh.
my wife is signaling me from the stands of the Garden, like, and I'm going, what? and she can't get out of New York.
Yeah.
Everything's shut down. There's nobody's allowed to move. The streets of New York City are desolate. It's like a ghost town. So it was the most incredible time I've ever been. We're walking down the middle of Sixth Avenue in the middle of the street, and there's no vehicles, no trains, no buses, no anything. So we won the game, by the way, by 35 points. So,
Oh,
but anyway,
No thanks to Kelsey Minato, you know.
yeah.
But that you know, I just think she's done a marvelous job. I mean, they're beautiful young girls, but it's been tough. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Christy. I mean, she had to sell a house, buy a house during a pandemic. I mean, that in itself is remarkably challenging, and there's just so many things that she's gone through. And it's been tough. I mean, you second guess doing things. She was very comfortable at UNH. She could have stayed there for the rest of her life. Her AD was devastated, I think, when she decided to make the move. But Holy Cross, honestly, is a basketball school. You know, Bob Cousy. It's like me. You know, it is, and they've had great tradition on the women's side. You know, they probably have won more Patriot League championships than any program. I think 12 total. So I just felt that, you know, there comes a time where you're getting too comfortable. I've done it in my career. I've stayed too long. I think I stayed too long at Marist, to be honest with you. So, you know, doing what I did now, I look back on it. I've been in Army now 15 years. In my wildest dreams, I never would have imagined me doing this for that long.
Yeah, I remember covering your team in the NCAA tournament in 2014 with Kelsey Minato, who is, I mean, she was such a phenomenon in terms of her skill set, her confidence, and she scored over 2,500 points during her career. I know she went overseas to play professionally, but boy, that was fun for me to see a player like that, because as you know, they don't come around a lot. You know, they're great players, but then they're like these iconic, you know, just career changing players. And that's what she was for you, right? And I think just to have a player like that, what was that like for you to be able to not only encourage her and continue to keep her on the right track and stay consistently efficient, but how is it for the other players? Like, you have someone like that who averaged like 23 a game. How is that to build the other players around her and still have her be able to do her thing?
Well, you start with her being incredibly selfless and almost to the point where there were times I had to call timeouts to tell her, you have to shoot the ball. I mean, you can't keep, you know, deferring to other people. You have to. We need you to win to do this. But she was that type of person. So there was never any resentment. I mean, and I've been around. I mean, on the men's side, I had a young man who was the number 2 pick in the NBA draft, Rick Smits, who played for the Indiana Pacers.
Absolutely.
And I mean, same thing. I couldn't have been blessed any more. I mean, the best women's player and the best men's player are two of the most outstanding human beings you'd ever want to be around. And Kelsey was she was a rare kid. And again, she was overlooked in high school. Schools just overlooked her in California. She's from Southern California, Huntington Beach. And we got really, really lucky and saw her in her senior year. She's probably one of the latest kids I've ever recruited, and had a hard time getting her in late, not because of her grades, but just because it's hard to get into West Point.
Right. Yeah. And with that, Maureen, when you saw what Minato was able to do as a player, how does that kind of lift you as a coach when you have a player who has those qualities and can be dynamic in terms of their ability to score? But I also know that, you know, the implementation of being an unselfish program is something that you want to carve out there at Holy Cross with your young team this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kelsey, I obviously got a chance to know her. We scrimmaged every year. We've never played in a game up until this weekend, but we've always scrimmaged. So when I was at UNH for 10 years, they would come up to us. We would go to West Point, and so I really got a chance to know Kelsey on a personal level. And like my dad said, she's one of the just sweetest, kindest, most loved players, that especially being as good as she was. And I definitely learned that from my dad. I mean, he always had players play unselfishly, and the offense that I've taken a few things over my day over working from him into my repertoire coaching wise, and just unselfish basketball. And I think for us right now at Holy Cross, we're a really young team. We have 4 freshmen. We only have 1 senior. And we really have honestly only 1 starter back from last year. Like you mentioned, that senior class that graduated, Lauren Manis was drafted in the WNBA. I mean, statistically, we didn't bring much back. I mean, Avery LaBarbera is a tremendous player that we bring back, but trying to instill that into all of our players right now, to the point that they're confident. They just don't have a lot of game experience, and moving the ball, playing that unselfish basketball right now for us is kind of easy. It's almost to the point where we have to look to shoot. But if we can instill that and just get a couple more pieces to the puzzle, and recruiting's gone really well, and just I think that's the most important thing, because you want to be known for that, your unselfish basketball and your toughness on the court.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are winning qualities, which you both are very familiar with, clearly. But with that being said, the Patriot League, the scheduling this year, because of the pandemic, is totally different. Only 16 games for each team. And for Holy Cross, you all play Boston 6 times, and you're going to play Army 4 times. And the first of the 4 is this Saturday. And I don't know what that's going to feel like or what that's going to be. But Dave, you alluded to, being both excited about it because that she's ready as a head coach, but then also to look down the sideline and see your daughter, Maureen.
Yeah, it's funny because she mentioned we had scrimmaged, from the moment she got there, we scrimmaged every year up until last year. But this is different. And I think that when you, and I'm not sure if this is the first time ever on the women's side that a father's gone against the daughter. But what makes it even, I think, sort of weirder is that we're in the same league. And like, normally you could possibly play somebody 3 times if you played, twice home and home, and then 4 times, and I don't possibly 5 times, if you ended up playing a championship game. But it's just it's just going to be weird. I don't know. And without the fans there, and I'm trying to figure out, can I get a special exemption to let my wife come to the game? Because they're like, and I'm not sure she go. What's she going to do? Wear purple and black and gold? I don't know what she would do. It'll be interesting, but I think as a coach and just as an opponent I watched her first 2 games, and we were lucky. Army and Navy got an exception by the league because of our situation. We're not allowed to redshirt kids because they're going into the Army, the Navy. Sure. We were allowed to play non-conference games, so we had 5 games, and it was great for us. We needed it. Played a good schedule and came out 3-2. We beat a really good Quinnipiac team. Got whacked by Marist pretty bad, but it was good for us. But with her, that was her first 2 games, and we played Colgate last weekend. They're very young, and they just it's going to be a process, I think, for her there. I sort of went through this the last 2 years. We were really young, so. Where I'm most comfortable with Maureen is she understands that. I mean, she's got 10 years under her belt as a head coach. She's got, a wealth of experience. She understands that piece of it. And I just, you hope that everybody else does, because that's part of what we deal with as coaches, the expectations or the lack of understanding of what we're going through.
Yeah. And Maureen, how do you take that daughter hat off, or do you, when the game is about to start and, the players are walking onto the court and they're getting ready to get the game going? what do you think your emotions will be on Saturday when you look down and see your dad on the other side?
Yeah, it's funny because of course, as soon as I take the job, that's what everybody, all of our family and friends, like that's the first thing everybody, oh, we got to mark that down. And, at the time, I think everybody was thinking, oh, we'll mark those 2 games down and we'll be in the stands, and how different the reality is now. So yeah, it'll be, I'm just so proud of my dad, and his coaching career, honestly, is one of the most amazing careers, I think, if you really look from where he started and how young he was when he was a head coach at St. Francis, and just where basketball has kind of taken him to the women's side. And so to have this opportunity, when I first worked for him, I never thought I would, be able to work for him. And now, just how I never thought this would actually happen, being in the same league and playing this many times. I mean, it's just, it's an amazing experience. I mean, I'm sure I'll try to keep it together, but it is emotional. I mean,
Yes.
my dad's my best friend. He's my hero, he's everything to me. And to have the opportunity to coach against him, he looks really young, but, he's still working, he's still coaching, and so I think it's just a really cool, unique experience. I mean, who knows how much longer my dad will coach, and just to have this opportunity, and, and just the way that the world is right now, I think it's just really embracing that moment and, being excited. But once the ball's tipped, it's a game, and I think my players, it's funny because I have such a young team, and they're still getting to know me. So they know, he's my dad and everything, but it's not really quite there yet. And I haven't really brought it up. And I think the returners are more focused on, we have to beat Army, they upset us last year. And that's fine, because I don't even really want to bring this into it, with the players. I'm sure with this upcoming week, I'm sure it'll get highlighted a little bit more, but I'm excited. And, and like my dad said, it is it's more than disappointing that our family and friends can't be there, the grandkids and my sister and my brother, but, they'll all be there in spirit. And, my kids asked, my mom was up the last couple of days, and of course that was, who are you rooting for? That's the latest thing with the kids.
Sure.
My mom gives a politically correct answer. Oh, Pop-Up can win 2 games and you can win, and mommy can win 2. And, my oldest is like, no, grandma, like, you have to pick somebody, you can't. So it's just funny to hear, all the grandkids talk, and it'll be a great experience. Hopefully everybody will play well, and stay healthy, and, hopefully we'll get 4 games in. I think that's the way I'm looking at it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And tell us the details, like where can we tune in with the rest of your family who will be watching with bated breath and cheering for both of you, I'm sure. How can we watch?
All of our games in our league are on ESPN Plus.
Okay.
So that's been great. I mean, we just switched over that platform this year. We were Patriot League Network had their own platform, but I think this is great. So we've been able to, watch each other's game. Obviously, you can always do that now, but so we're playing at 3:00 both days, and part of the scheduling in the league, which is a little tough. Yeah, Maureen will have to get on a bus Saturday morning, drive to West Point. That's a tough trip. I mean, we're talking 3+ hours. And then go home. And then we have to get on a bus Sunday morning and go to Worcester, Massachusetts, which, it's a little, I have to be careful what I say. Last weekend, Colgate came Saturday, but stayed over Saturday. We played back-to-back at the same location.
Place, yes.
Makes more. And then when we go to Navy, we'll do the same thing. And then Boston. Maureen has a few trips like that. But, you mentioned playing BU 6 times. Boston U may be the best team in our league. For her to have to play them 6 times is tough. They're really, really talented. And they did a great job, I thought, especially yesterday, the second game. Came back and really competed. And their freshmen played. They're going to be really good. Yeah. And she's done a great job recruiting. She has a tremendous class coming in next year. She stole a few kids from us.
Recruiting,
there, right?
Hey, All
Not
fair.
not everybody wants to go in the Army, Christy.
Yeah. But what I do know for sure is all is fair in love and basketball. And wow, what a fantastic conversation that you all shared with us today. And I lost my dad 2 years ago, so I know how special, that
okay.
bond is. I'll get it together.
No, I'm
But
sorry.
I know how special that bond is, especially with the love of hoops. And so I'm actually
Thank you.
sorry.
No,
Yeah.
no, and and that's why I
Thank
think,
you.
no, I do. And that's why I think, people are talking about this, and it is, I mean, I get it. I'm probably going to be crying in the locker room because I think, when you have that bond over a
Yeah.
sport with your dad, with your mom, I mean, it is, it just, I can't tell you the amount of hours me and my dad have been in cars driving, watching games, and it's special. So like I said, I'm just going to embrace the moment and just be, thankful for the time that even win or lose, he's still going to be my dad. And I know he's going to be proud of me, and I'm going to be proud of him. So thank you.
I'll finish up by saying this, Christy. She alluded to it about how much longer I'm going to do this. Yeah, myself and Gary Blair at Texas A&M have a bet. Who's gonna drop first? Who's going to step down? He's because that's a military school.
Yeah.
Or part of it is, and he's always wants me to come out and play him, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to College Station. But I don't know exactly how old he is. I know I'll be 71 this month, so it's I've had a great run, and it's been a lot of fun. But to finish up like this with her is really special.
Well, I love it. And I appreciate you guys carving out time in your busy schedules. Probably have another Zoom coming up with your players or something like that. I know it's been very busy in a different kind of world that we're living in, but we are here together. And I just certainly appreciate everything that you shared today. And I can't wait to watch. And maybe I'll paint my face half and half because it's going to be tough to choose. But tears are falling still. Sorry, but those are happy tears now. But I'm certainly happy for both of you to be in the moment that you will be in, not just today, but moving forward this season and forevermore. So we appreciate you taking time today to spend some time on Christy's court on the Field of 68 Network. We hope you guys subscribe and continue to build the game of women's basketball here on the Field of 68 Network. And all the best to both of you. Stay healthy and continue to be joyful, happy, and
Thank you so much.
So much fun. Thank you so much.